All right, EJ, Herrick, thanks for joining me again on All Things Division Three Soccer. We wanted to do a quick hit here to review the games that we select or you selected for the poll. Have
Yeah.
heard that we have quite a number of participants and some interesting statistics. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
Record number, Paul. Record number.
really,
Yeah.
what's the
Four,
rec?
41.
Wow.
41, which is like double what we traditionally saw on a weekly basis.
How awesome is that?
Yeah.
I'll say this. I'm going to say this before the games start. Although games have started, because as I mentioned, I'm watching UMass Boston, Salve Regina, UMass Boston taking it away at 2-0 already at half. But um, I am going to figure out some swag to give to the winner
Nice.
of the pool at the end of the season.
Which will not
Some
be me, which is going on record.
Well, it could. I mean, I might
It
be buying it for
could be, but
myself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could be. More power to you if you can.
But anyhow, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, we're recording this at 1:00, so I think the first kickoff games might be going on now. Yeah, pretty much one, but I think some of these big games are all at 7:30 ish time
Yeah, a
frame.
lot of night games looks like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
And not all of them are Friday
not
night.
all of them are
Yeah.
today. Correct,
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it away. What do you want to start
Sure.
with?
So, yeah, what I thought I would do is just go through the 10 matchups, talk a little bit about what the results or what the consensus looks like.
Okay.
I always find it interesting. There's some, interesting stories in there. And then we'll leave it at that and see how well we did at the end of the weekend.
Okay.
Let's talk about game, and I'm going to go in different order. I'm going to go
Okay.
from greatest consensus to the least.
Least. Okay.
Yeah. So the consensus, the easiest game to pick apparently is Messiah Scranton. You got 98% people picking Messiah to win that game,
Wow.
and 2% pick a draw.
And that's a stretch, I think, the draw. I'm going to be honest. I
I
think
do
that.
too. I think it's a Messiah win. But what I find interesting is apparently Everett has a better chance of drawing Duke than Scranton does at drawing Messiah. Because the second game, Duke is only 95% picked compared
Wow.
to 98 for Messiah.
Wow. Hey, can I ask, do you have like an average score for the Messiah Scranton? Like what's sort of the average?
I'd have to look back, but I quickly scrolled through it. Most of the scores lines in all the games are two maybe three
Two,
goals
three.
tops.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah.
only a couple that stand out. Well, aside from the Duke game, there's only a
Right.
couple that stand out, and I'll talk about that in a minute when I get to the
Okay.
game. There's one or two that stand out. That's an
Yeah.
interesting score line.
Yeah. I
Um,
I
yeah,
think I think the 5% chance of a draw for Everett versus Duke are like those die hard, like, come on, baby, we can take these
we
Dukies.
we can
We
do
can
it.
do it. We
So
can do it.
I looked
Believe.
I looked back at Duke's for the same weekend, like last year, the year before, or whatever, and see what their attendance numbers were for those games. I
Uh-huh.
think they played like Ferrum,
Uh-huh.
another Division One opponent, but probably not as strong. And they had like 1,500 people for that game. So I have a feeling Everett's going to go in there and be like,
Oh
"Oh
my.
my, what did we just get ourselves into?"
Like 700 students behind their goal screaming
With
at
no
them.
shirt on, they got a giant D painted on their chest. It's,
Oh
yeah.
Lord, I wish I could be there. I wish I
I,
could be on the field for Everett. That's for
that's
sure.
I can't wait to see where that one
Yeah,
goes.
yeah,
So yeah, one of the interesting score lines there, 11-0. Somebody's got Duke winning 11-0.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I don't know, but interesting.
you pick such hard ones to pick winners for. That's for sure.
And again, I'll repeat. There's probably another 6 or 7 games that I could have put on here that I
Yeah,
didn't. I mean, I
yeah,
think what Kenyon's got a killer opener.
yeah,
Was it tonight? I think I put their Sunday game in against John
yeah.
Carroll.
I think tonight's Ohio Northern.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. I
can,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
there's tons of good games that I just didn't get to for
And
various
I
reasons.
know you purposely left them off, but Mount Union travels to Ohio Wesleyan this evening
There you
for
go.
their opener.
What are
So that
the purple people eaters or something like that? What are they?
Purple Raiders. You
Purple
know what?
Raiders.
This
There you
this
go.
conversation's over. All right.
All right.
Well,
Third game. Third
there,
game. Rochester and Cortland. Cortland 56% favored in that game. Rochester only 15.
yeah.
So a bunch of draws, about 30% draw.
I'm surprised that they were actually. I'm maybe not surprised. I'm surprised that no one called a draw a higher number of draws.
I was surprised that all 10 games draw was not the consensus pick
Yeah.
for at
Yeah.
least one game.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
one game has draw as the
Yeah.
consensus pick. Historically, there's always two or three games where
Yeah.
people say, it's probably going to be a draw.
Draw. Yeah.
None of them this time.
Not
There's a
even.
flat out winner each time.
And there's one we'll talk about the Stevens Denison game. Like I would that's my draw. Like I think like that would be the game to draw.
And that's yeah. I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah.
F&M Lynchburg. F&M 56%.
And on the road
On the
too.
road, I know. Now
Yeah.
Lynchburg's not home, as we learned. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
neutral site, but still, I
Still.
thought that was interesting. 56% on F&M, 22% on Lynchburg.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't know. I don't know about
I
that.
don't know about that. I think that's. Let me ask you: in your previous ones, where have there been games where like the consensus has largely been very wrong? Like
Yeah,
where you like not within degrees, but like you got this totally bad. Everyone picked bad.
well, yes and no. I mean, typically a lot of these, there's usually not a big disparity between
Uh,
picks. It's usually 60-40 is a big
yeah,
split, because I try and get games that are going to be ultra competitive.
yeah,
You don't see a lot of 80%, 20% games unless, of course, I'm putting something in there for fun or just to see if we can get a score right.
right.
You know, so yeah, I think that Lynchburg F&M game is.
I,
I wouldn't be confident given
I
F&M
was expecting I
56%.
was expecting it much tighter.
Lynchburg's
Like
the favorite to win the ODAC.
yeah, yeah,
They're a good team.
they're a good team. That's what I mean. I was
Right,
expecting. I would even go as far as say, okay, a third, a third, a third.
right.
Like that was sort of my mental like. You
Yep,
couldn't. I couldn't say, "Oh, F and M's going to win 3-0." Like that's just not.
right.
I don't think that's based on reality.
Well, we'll find
So,
out.
all right.
The next one surprised me a lot,
Yeah,
and I kind of teased it a little bit when we talked about this the other day. Washington, Lebanon
yeah.
Valley.
It's another
Washington,
one.
56% are picking
Yeah,
Washington on the road, on the thick grass at
grass.
Lebanon Valley.
Yeah,
And I have you seen Lebanon play? Have you seen Nathan Prex play?
yeah, yeah.
He's a beast. I think he's going to score two goals and they're going to win that game.
Again, not to discount how they play, but I just does Washington able to come consistently out of the gate this time after a successful season last season? Do they come out again like, hey, we're at that level? I don't. That's the question mark for me.
Right.
That's um,
It'll be interesting. I really think I was expecting Lebanon to get a little bit more love,
more love.
and I
Yeah,
think maybe it's just because people just don't know them.
don't know.
They're not a
I'm
big name. They're not a
totally.
popular name.
I actually think that is the rationale.
They're
Who's
good.
Lebanon
They're
Valley?
good.
Hey, what are they? Community college? Like seriously, I think that's the way people like. I've never heard of these people, so they can't be that.
They're
But
very
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
They're very good.
All right, this
Um,
one surprised me as well.
yeah, I
St. Olaf,
guess.
Chicago.
Olaf, Chicago. Chicago 51%. Olaf 20%.
Yeah, that's a little disrespectful.
It is, and this is one of the scores that I thought was interesting. I didn't see the score line. I just saw the goals for Chicago. Somebody's got Chicago scoring 5 goals in this game.
I wish for unicorns as well, but I will say, let me just say one thing though. If that does materialize, that Chicago scores 5 on St. Olaf, number one, I will eat my hat. No, I won't eat my hat. But number two, I will say that says a lot to me about Chicago.
Yes,
right? Like, and then I will be okay. I'm back on board. How good are these guys? And I'll start to look at them a lot different light than I sort of have them in my head right now.
I think if Chicago puts up a five, unless it's 5-4,
Right, right. Agreed, agreed, agreed.
right. If it's 5-1, 5-0, that's a statement. That's not just,
I,
oh, we're comfortable. No, no, that's a
no,
statement, and
you bet.
immediately vaults them to the top of the conversation.
Correct. Absolutely agreed.
Right,
100%.
right. This next one, I can see the numbers here a little bit. Hopkins 49%, Washington and Lee 24. I thought it'd be a little bit. I thought maybe
I,
this would get a draw because
yeah.
Hopkins. Obviously they're a great team, but they never. I'm never
Light it up.
confident picking them to say they're going to win this game. Like
Yeah.
I usually pick Hopkins as a draw. Like I just
Yeah.
expect them to tie 1-1.
Yeah.
You know,
Like I said,
some
I think they never have that like, oh, they could put 3 goals. Well, you never get that sense from Hopkins. I watch them and I love
right.
how they play.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Love,
yeah.
but I'm like, man, if you need 3 goals from Hopkins, you're gonna have to wait 3 games because they'll score a goal a game, but they're never
That's
going to get to 2 or 3.
right. They're gonna. I usually have them, 1-1 draw
Yeah,
or a 1-0 win.
yeah.
Somebody's got them scoring 4 goals. I,
When
okay,
was the
granted,
last time?
they
I don't
they
even.
scored 4 goals in the tournament last year
Yeah,
because they had to score two,
two. Oh,
two,
yeah,
two in the final 8 minutes
yeah,
and then
yeah.
two in the final 2 minutes of overtime. But I mean, come on, that Hopkins
No,
doesn't.
it doesn't
I
do
don't see
that.
them scoring. If they score 4 goals, I think that's an indictment on Washington and Lee.
Yeah, and I will say just the numbers as because you and I'm gonna if it's okay with you, I'm gonna take the document you sent me and
Yeah,
I'll link to it. I'll
yeah,
find a
yeah.
way to um you know I'm surprised at how low they people rate Washington and Lee. At 24%, they give them 24% chance to win.
Well,
Like
not. I mean, in only a 27% chance to tie. Like I
tie,
can say,
yeah.
okay, maybe you don't win, but a 40% chance of tie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's it.
Yeah,
To me, this is another one. The F&M Lynchburg, and then this one were the ones where I was just kind of like, this just completely out of whack.
I agree. Like I said, there's some of these
Yeah,
they're interesting. I mean,
yeah,
my opinion clearly doesn't you know carry any more weight than anybody else's at this point.
yeah,
But I found some of these really interesting. The next one was Stevens and Dennison.
yeah.
Dennison 46%, Stevens 32%. I got to think Steve. I mean, like I mentioned, I like Dennison. I think Stevens gets a win here, if not a tie.
I, I, I
They're
think
getting points here. I
they have
think.
the ability. I think they have the talent. I was going through their roster of players and just, hey, where do they play? And just knowing the clubs and the teams that they played for. But I think these guys might be a little bit of a dark horse. Stevens might be a dark horse in the season. I think they're a lot better than what people are giving them credit for.
I
And in
think
this case, go
that's
ahead.
another. I think that's another school where people know it but don't know it
Oh
well.
no, yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah. That's going to be a fun game to watch too. I will say.
Yeah.
Like I really, I think both teams play some really great ball, and I think that they are very tactically intelligent. So they are going in with a game plan, not just be like, okay, let's see how the game develops. No, they're going in with this is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to beat Dennison or Dennison. This is how we're going to beat Stevens. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. This next one, Kenyon John Carroll. That was interesting to me too. John Carroll 44%, Kenyon 29%.
Yeah,
Not even a
and
tie. This
yeah.
27% tie. Um,
You know what though? This is
John,
one where I thought might be out of whack, but I'm like, okay, John Carroll coming back from a what I think they consider kind of a disappointing season on a number of levels, playing Kenyon on turf.
yeah,
I think that's a
yeah,
big
and
deal.
and and the point I brought up when we spoke the other day. They have beaten them 8 times out of the
8 times,
last
yeah,
11 years. So
yeah,
history favors them. Although I'm never a huge proponent of historical statistics because it's completely different teams, so it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
doesn't really make much of a difference. But again, that's one where I thought Kenyon would at least get a little bit more love for a
Yeah,
tie.
yeah. I thought they would have been given the benefit of the doubt. Again, I don't know if ties are harder for people to predict or what, but I think by and large, I was expecting greater numbers on the draw for all of these
Yeah,
games than I saw.
under
You know,
30%
under 30%.
on
I'm
every
like
one of them.
on every one of them. To me, surprised
Yeah,
me. I thought,
that
I,
totally surprised me.
yeah, yeah. I thought there would be for some people they would be. Oh, this is a clear cut tie for me, which would have been fine. But
A bunch of amateurs we got this
and
year.
it's, yeah, we're taking their money. All right,
They
last
don't know what
one.
they're getting into.
Yeah.
This last one, Montclair Babson. In Babson, without Montclair, without Rumor, right? Without Lukovic, um, Montclair's still 42%. Babson 29. Montclair plays very direct. You know, I mean, maybe that changes without Lukovic up top, but, you know, they played balls, long balls quickly up top to him and let him work his magic. You know, I suspect that'll still be the case, and they'll just have, you know, new runners up top. But like I said, I'm already picturing this game where, you know, Babson's up 2-1 with, you know, 10 minutes to go, and Montclair's just throwing everything at him. And you know, maybe I'm wrong, you know, but that's kind of how I envisioned it. And whether or not they get the tie or they squeak out the win, you know, I don't know. But 42% I thought was kind of high for Montclair, given the lack of Lukovic up top this year. Well, and again, you know, this is one of those games where I don't think it really matters in the big picture. You know, it's a good game for both of them, but ultimately, I don't think it tells a story for how their season is going to be. And it's just, you know, it's just good to get it under their belt.